artificial intelligence in remote sensing and Earth observation. It is truly a pleasure to have such a distinguished gathering and experts, educators, and enthusiasts who are passionate about exploring the intersection of artificial intelligence and geospatial technologies. It is my distinct honor to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guest, Dr. Subir. I'd like to request Dr. Upi Singh, Head of Center of Faculty and Staff Development and Head of Department AIDS, to welcome Dr. Paul with a khada and a memento.
Take later. Geotex. Focus क्यों नहीं आ रही geotex? Geotex focus क्यों नहीं आती है?
Thank you, sir. Dr. Paul is an accomplished researcher and data scientist with expertise in sustainable agriculture and geospatial technology. He earned his PhD from the prestigious Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore, specializing in hyperspectral remote sensing and advanced machine learning techniques for land cover classification and chlorophyll content estimation. With a strong academic background, including a master's degree in water resources engineering from IISc and a bachelor's degree in agriculture engineering from Uttar Banga Krishi Vishwavidyalaya, Dr. Paul has significantly contributed to the field through his research and industry engagements. His postdoctoral work at the Helmholtz Institute Freiburg for Resource Technology in Germany advanced the frontiers of remote sensing and change detection. Currently serving as the lead data scientist at Bhumitra and having held key position at Varaha Climate Agriculture Private Limited, Dr. Paul has over a decade of experience in hyperspectral image classification, crop detection monitoring, and carbon credit qualification. His research has been widely published in high-impact journals such as IEEE, TGRS, J-Stars, and many more. We are truly privileged to have Dr. Paul with us today and look forward to gaining valuable insights from his extensive experience in leveraging artificial intelligence and geospatial technologies for sustainable development. Welcome, Dr. Paul. So without further delay, I'd like to welcome Sir to the dais.
Thank you for the introduction, and thank you, sir, for inviting me for this presentation. So as you all know, like, I am from a private industry, so I will talk about what are the things private industries are doing today, and what are the different applications of different applications of remote sensing. And since I am since last 2 years I am working on sustainable agriculture, so I will briefly give some details about the sustainable agriculture also and what we can do with remote sensing from the sustainability perspective. So this is like overview of my presentation. So I think by the time you all know about the basic of all the remote sensing technologies. So there are basically three, four types of remote sensing data we can acquire. So optical data, then using synthetic aperture radar (SAR) data, which is like in the microwave range, and then there will be, in case of optical, there is two type of things: multispectral as well as hyperspectral. And this type of spectra you can get from the hyperspectral data sets in case of different land surface features. And so benefits of remote sensing is like we can monitor in large scale. In case of if we want to do like field scale monitoring, that is all very expensive and we can't go in each and every places. So for large scale monitoring, remote sensing is the only solution, and we can get high temporal and spatial resolution data from remote sensing. So there are different applications of remote sensing. For crop monitoring, we can do using remote sensing data for identifying different types of crops, then identifying different sustainable practices like whether carbon sequestration happened or not, whether soil quality is improved or not. Then for disaster mitigation also, like drought monitoring and flood monitoring, we can do using remote sensing. Then land use mapping, that is again like land cover type classification we can do. Then for infrastructure development also we can use the GIS technology. Similarly, like we can do the land cover classification, so that also comes in that class. The deforestation also we can do, like we can classify the forest types and then we can check whether deforestation happened or not using the time series data analysis. And then we can also monitor the air quality, so maybe using the hyperspectral data. And then we can also check whether carbon footprint reduction is happening or not in terms of sustainability. Then we can also explore minerals, whether which locations we have the minerals and whether there is a possibility of mining or not. Those things we can also inquire using the remote sensing data, either using hyperspectral data or synthetic aperture radar data, we can do that. And then for disaster response also, like if in some area flood happened and then we want to monitor like how much area is affected because of that and how to start with the relief operation, those things also we can carry out using the remote sensing data. Now coming to the like what are the different private industries are there in remote sensing. So what are the role of the private industry in remote sensing? So the main driving force which is there for how the private industry started using the remote sensing. So there is a demand for the actionable insights. As I mentioned earlier, that we need the high spatial information for all over the locations in different time scales. So that can be only done using the remote sensing data. And then there is advancement of sensor technology. So day by day, the sensor technology is also increasing. We are using SAR data, like optical data can't penetrate through the clouds. So we are now using the SAR data for different applications. Similarly, we are also using hyperspectral data where multispectral data can't, suppose in a crop classification case or maybe crop disease detection or crop growth monitoring. Those cases we can't do with the multispectral data. So for that we need the hyperspectral data. So there is like different advancement is happening. So recently Pixel has launched one hyperspectral sensor. So that will further we can get the hyperspectral data and that will be useful for different applications like crop monitoring, then crop growth stage monitoring, then crop species detection, as well as for different other applications like mineral classification, soil mapping also, soil quality mapping also. And then there is like now since lots of advancement is happening, lots of commercial satellites are getting launched by different companies. In this, the industry contribution is mainly in building and launching different private satellites and then developing the data processing platform and providing the analytics for diverse applications. So this is actually a screenshot of like different top 100 geospatial companies which are there all over the world. So this is a little old but maybe informative because there are like several companies which are directly using the remote sensing data and some of them are also launching the remote sensing satellites. And some are like analytics based who are only using the remote sensing data for different applications. So like I can recognize here two important Indian company here. which is ADAS and Satyug. So these are mostly analytics based companies. There could be some others also, but I don't know. And there are some global companies also which exist in India, like Esri, Google and all. So yeah. And then so these are like here this list is like for different applications. So in remote sensing data we can use for different applications, and there is like infrastructure and asset management, then for extended reality indoor mapping, geospatial engineering and consulting, then drone data we can use, and then sensor solutions, data visualization, earth observation. So in earth observation all this crop classification, forest monitoring, land cover classification, this will fall into. And then the mapping services, navigation system, which is mainly use the GIS services, then location intelligence and different developer tools and some analytics companies also. Now these are the companies which are working on launching different satellites. It could be hyperspectral satellite, it could be SAR satellite, it could be multispectral also, and it could be microwave also. So most importantly, in hyperspectral zone we have this Pixel, which is an Indian startup company, and recently they have launched their sensor. Then there is Planet Data, which is also like lots of people uses this Planet Data, but this is like commercial satellite, so you can't get free access to these data sets. This will be very high resolution data, like 5-meter resolution. And this Indian company Satsure is also planning to launch a high spatial resolution data. They are planning for I think 1.2-meter resolution data. And then this Galaxy, who is planning to launch both multispectral as well as SAR sensors. Yeah, so this is some details about the Pixel company, what they are doing. So they are planning to launch total 6 satellites, which will be like constellation of 6 hyperspectral sensors. So their target is like 5-meter spatial resolution, and there will be 250 plus spectral bands, which will be I think 5 nanometer spectral resolution, and it will ranging from the visible to NIR and SWR wavelength. And then using these data sets, the whatever hyperspectral data they will acquire, they are building an Earth observation studio, which is named is Aurora, and they will give the output product, like they will analyze different data sets for different applications. Suppose you want to monitor the crop, so they can give you NDVI or some other indices or some biophysical or biochemical variables like leaf area index, then chlorophyll content. Using the hyperspectral data, they will analyze that, and then for a particular maybe farm boundary or cropped area, you can get those information like what is chlorophyll concentration, what is your leaf area index, how the crop is growing. Based on that, you can get those information. So there are different applications: vegetation, forest cover mapping, crop species identification, then crop disease detection, mining activity monitoring, then oil spill detection, natural disaster response, and soil health also. So in terms of soil health, we can also model the soil organic carbon and also the NPK content of the soil. That can be done with the hyperspectral data. Now there is a SaaS-based agri-tech company, Cropin. So they are basically doing this AI-powered agriculture sustainability solution. So again, their application is somewhat similar, like monitoring deforestation, afforestation, and then assessing the cover crops, then capturing the biomass information for forest areas, and then track the irrigation practices using LSWI index, which is land surface water index, and then enforce the irrigation practices with irrigation advisory model. So generally for farmers, they provide this irrigation advisory model. So farmer has to like put a farm boundary, and then based on that farm boundary, using the satellite data, they will analyze like what is the crop condition and when the sowing happened. Based on that, they will provide the irrigation advisory. Similarly, they also providing the fertilizer spray advisory when fertilizer has to be sprayed or any pesticide has to be used. Based on the they can do the crop disease detection. So based on that, they can advise the farmers when to use the pesticides. And then they also provide this weather advisory, which is again using the climate data like temperature, then precipitation, humidity, wind speed, etc. Now there is another company, Subir. They are also developing different products like again based on the farm boundary you can monitor the irrigation conditions, cropping intensity, sown area and crop classification you can do. So their product name is Sparta, and another thing they are doing is like they are collaborating with the financial institution, so they can process the crop loans. So there are different financial institutions which provides the crop loans, and they are tying up with it, and they are analyzing the farm condition as per the remote sensing data, and then they are like taking the decision like on the crop loans, like how much loan they can provide or like what will be the other terms and conditions. And then they can also provide near real-time analytics from high-resolution Earth observation data. So integrating different, which are like efficient process planning and key decision-making infrastructure. And they are also opened a new subsidiary named KLDEO, which is they are also planning to launch multispectral satellite, which will have the RGB bands and NIR band, red edge band and panchromatic band, and they are planning to launch this with 1.2 meter spatial resolution. So this is another company which is Satyukt, and they are mostly doing this soil related studies, soil testing they are doing. So after doing the soil testing, they also provides the remote sensing based soil testing analysis. Like for a particular farm, they can provide you information on soil organic carbon, then pH, and then nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium content of the soil, and then soil moisture information also they can provide. And yeah, so based on this real-time data, they can provide different crop cultivation information, and also they are providing this carbon-based MRB carbon credits also, which is like SOC estimation and then sequestration monitoring MRB practices to create a robust framework that ensures the reliability and credibility of carbon credits. So now I will give some details about the sustainable agriculture, and what is the remote sensing, how remote sensing can be utilized in sustainable agriculture. So in sustainable agriculture, there are like a few startup companies with regenerative agriculture practices. So when you say regenerative agriculture practices, it means like the agriculture practices you have to perform in such a way that it does not make much emission. Like when we do the crop cultivation through transplanting of rice, there will be lots of methane emission, which actually not good for the environment. So that's why the farmers, the government as well as this private industry is also promoting direct seeding of rice. So through the direct seeding of rice, there will be there won't be any emission of methane, since we are not puddling the soils, and the cultivation is not done through the transplanting process. So methane emission will be reduced, and like how this emission is getting reduced, based on that component we can calculate the carbon credits. So this is they are promoting, and similarly through afforestation or planting trees also we can improve the soil quality by sequestration or incorporation of soil organic carbon into the soil. Similarly, there are different projects based on biochar as well as enhanced rock weathering also, which also sequestrated soil organic carbon into the soil. And then there is grassland restoration. So grassland restoration is basically it happens like there is like grazing happens. So what traditional people used to do, they used to do the continuous grazing. So instead of continuous grazing, people are now planning for this rotational grazing. So in case of rotational grazing, what will happen? Like some part of the field will be first the cattle will be allowed to move, and then like the other part will be retained. They won't be allowed. Then in some other part they will be allowed. So in the meantime, the which part the cattle are not allowed, in that part that grass will grow there, and through this the SOC can improve into the soil, and erosion can be reduced of the soil. So now, what are the benefits to the farmers through these sustainable agriculture practices? So farmer can earn additional income through sales of this carbon credit. So whatever this, because of the regenerative agriculture practices, whatever the improvement is happening, like emission is getting reduced, SOC is getting sequestered into the soil. So these can ultimately counted as in terms of carbon credits, and like different industries who are doing the emissions. So they are now because we have this goal of like by 2040 or 50 we have to be like sustainable, and because of that this industry has to purchase the carbon credits. So now they are going to purchase this carbon credits from the farmers, and through that they will pay the farmers for this. And so if the farmer follows the sustainable agriculture practice, their crop cultivation or productivity won't be affected. In some cases it can improve also, and in the same time they can earn the extra money through selling these carbon credits. So for them it is like a win-win situation. And then like these regenerative practices, what I mentioned earlier, this direct seeding of rice, there are some others also like reduced tillage, residue incorporation. This sequesters the carbon into the soil and also improve the soil health. So there is a possibility, and there is also some experimental study also that because of this sequestration into the soil health is improved and productivity can also improve. And then there is like regenerative practices reduces this groundwater use also. So when we follow this transplanting of rice, at that time there will be we need to use lots of water for that, because we need to maintain certain depth of water into the rice field. Now when we using this direct seeding of rice, then that water requirement is less, so we can reduce the usage of water through that. And then this enhanced rock weathering process also improves the soil structures and nutrient availability, leading to a better water retention and potential increased crop yields. So as I explained earlier also, this is like details about like how this transplanting and DSR happened. So this is like a DSR part, you can say, and this can be the transplanting. So in case of transplanting, you can see there is lot of water requirement is there, and but in case of DSR there is no water requirement. And so what happens, like when we do the sowing, they generally sow through the broadcasting methods, and there is like very little supply of water is required. And so the benefits of DSR is like relatively cheaper than transplanting process, and then require less labor also, because as you know, the transplanting is like a farmer has to plant the trees like one by one, but in case of DSR you can just do the broadcasting process. Then the transplanting actually emits lots of methane gas, but in case of DSR this methane emission is not there. So these are the benefits of the DSR. And also to monitor this sustainable practices, like whether some farmers has done the DSR practice or they are following the transplanting practice, so we can do that using the satellite data. So here we can use the SAR satellite data, because here we can't use the multispectral data. There is one reason is like in India paddy cultivation mostly happens is Kharif season, And in Kharif season, we don't have access to optical data because of the cloudy condition. So that's why people are experimenting with the SAR data to monitor, to differentiate between whether someone is doing sustainable practices through DSR or not. To monitor that, we can use the VH band of the Sentinel-1, which is a SAR sensor. And so from the VH band, there is one thing, like when there is much more water depth, the VH band is sensitive to the water. So when for how much time the water is stagnant on the farm, that we can monitor using the VH band, and based on that we can prepare a model which will differentiate between the direct seeding of rice and the transplanting of rice. And similarly, there is another thing, like when we do the direct seeding of rice, there will be like the crop, we have to perform that little bit early. Like suppose in May month we are doing the sowing, and then the gradually crop will grow. But in case of transplanting, we have to grow the transplanted these plants in some other area, and then we have to plant into the main farms. So because of that, suddenly there will be like the crop growth will happen, and that pattern can be identified using the VH polarization band. So this is how we can differentiate between DSR and transplanting. Then there is a very usual practice which happens, this crop residue burning. So this crop residue burning is also not good for the environment because it emits lots of carbon, and this also reduces the soil organic carbon content. So this is unsustainable practice. So that's why in areas like in North India, people generally used to follow this crop residue burning. So now government is like promoting not to burn the crops. They are taking different actions so that farmers don't burn. So if they are not burning the crops, there will be like they can do the crop residue management in some other way, for which government is giving subsidy to them. As well as if they don't do the crop residue burning, they can also earn through this carbon credits also. If some farmer is doing the crop residue burning, then they won't be eligible for the carbon credits, because it's actually emitting the carbon into the environment. So this crop residue burning also we can detect using remote sensing data. So here we can use the Sentinel-2 data, which is like 5-day temporal resolution data, and this is also available at 10-meter spatial resolution. So there is a indices called NBR, normalized burn ratio. Using that indices and monitoring the whole time series of the normalized burn ratio, we can detect whether a farm is burnt or not. And so burning basically happens during October and November months. So if we analyze those 2 months data, then we can identify the burned area. And obviously the one condition will be there, since Sentinel-2 is optical data, so we need the cloudless data. If cloudless data is available, then only we can do that. Now there is another type of regenerative practice which mostly happens in case of wheat. So there is like reduced tillage and conventional tillage. So as you can see here, so if we don't burn the crops and we generally use the crop residue as it is in the field and don't do any tillage activity into the farm, then it is known as the no-till or zero tillage. So farmers generally kept the residue into the farm itself, and on that farm only they will just do the sowing. They won't do any tillage activity with any machinery. So that case is like pure sustainable practice, which is known as zero tillage or no tillage. Then there is somewhat intermediary step, which is like conservation tillage or reduced tillage, you can say. So here what happens, like farmer, they will do the that crop residue, whatever is there in the field, they can remove the crop residue using some baling activity, or they can incorporate the crop residue into the farm itself using some machineries, like using some machineries they can incorporate the farm crop residue into the farm. And that, so the one thing is the difference between the conservation tillage and the conventional tillage is like, in case of conventional tillage, the tillage will happen beyond the depth of 30 centimeter or 20 centimeter. So if you are going beyond the 20 centimeter depth, then the churning of the soil is happening in such a way that again the emission will increase, and the water will require more in those farms. So because of that, conventional tillage falls under the non-regenerative practices. So that's why farmers are getting promoted. I mean, among the farmers, government is promoting to follow the reduced till practice. So which can be, there is a machinery which is very popular in North India, like happy seeder and super seeder. So using that machineries, you can do the reduced till. Those machinery will go only up to 15 centimeter or max 20 centimeter into the soil, and that won't churn the soil enough, and they will do the seeding through that machinery. So because of that, the churning is not happening enough into the soil, and the soil nutrients or other components is not getting exposed to the environment, and it will retain into the soil. So this is how the conservation tillage and zero tillage is helps in generating the carbon credits. And there are several benefits of these practices, which is again decrease in labor time, then reduce the fuel cost also, as compared to the other conventional tillage machinery like moldboard plow. In case of super seeder, the fuel cost will be lesser. The fuel which required to operate this machinery is lesser. Then these also reduce the soil erosion and nutrient runoff also, and improves the soil health. So this whether this crop residue incorporation happened or not, that we can detect through remote sensing. So in remote sensing, we can use the optical remote sensing data, and based on different indices like crop residue cover, and maybe normalized difference tillage index or cellulose absorption index, we can check whether how much crop residue is present into the field, whether crop residue got incorporated into the soil or not. That we can monitor through the remote sensing data. And then there is another regenerative practices which happens is like cover crop. So during the after the Kharif season, during the gap period of Rabi and Kharif season, which is basically March, April month. So in that duration, what happens, like people earlier, they used to like keep the field empty. They mostly don't do any sowing at that time. So now these industries and even government also, they are promoting, instead of keeping the field empty, you just put some short-term crop, which is like 2 months or 3 months crop. So which are basically known as cover crops, and that will actually, what it will help, it will increase the soil organic content into the soil, and it also improves the soil fertility also. And at the same time, because the soil is covered with the crops, there won't be any erosion also. If the soil is empty, there is possibility of erosion. Now this cover crop also we can monitor using NDVI time series data. So if we analyze the NDVI time series data during this April or March-April month, then we can see whether some farmers has done this cover cropping or not. Now coming to this rotational grazing, which I mentioned earlier also. So in this figure you can see, like in this area now cattle is allowed to graze, and then like these three portions is kept empty. Now when this portion will be empty, then the cattle will be moved to in this area, and then in the mean time period, these two areas are like allowed to grow again. So this is how there are lots of benefits happens, like improving the long-term pasture quality and fertility of the soil, and then improve the soil, plant and animal health also, and sequestration of carbon and prevention of erosion also happens through this. Now we can monitor this rotational grazing through remote sensing, like how this whether this vegetative area is reducing in a rotational manner or not, and then whether SOC sequestration happened or not, that we can monitor through soil organic carbon modeling. So we can monitor the earlier time period, maybe suppose they are following this practice, suppose 1, 2, 3 years. Now before the 2, 3 years time period, what was the SOC content into the farm, and then down the line after 3 years, what will be the SOC content. So this SOC also we can model using remote sensing data, and then we can see like how much soil organic carbon sequestration happened, and then like we can calculate the carbon credits accordingly. So for soil organic carbon modeling, we are generally doing this time series based analysis, and based on different data sets are getting used here, remote sensing as well as weather data. So NDVI time series data, then temperature time series data, soil moisture data, elevation and slope information, and then the soil texture information, as well as land use, land cover information is also getting used. And then like we are building a time series based machine learning model, which is which can or which able to predict the soil organic carbon of the soil. Now there are different challenges in private sector adoption also. So one of the challenges is like data accessibility. So whenever as you know, like there are whenever these government organizations are planning for any satellite launch, like European and USA, this ESA and USGS is the most popular one, and they provide the data in open access, but those are not like you don't get very high resolution data. So in case of Sentinel, you will get 10-meter resolution data, and then USGS Landsat data you can get 30-meter resolution. But for some for precision agriculture, you need much more higher resolution. So these private industries, they are launching much more higher resolution data, but at the same time, since these are commercial satellites, these data sets are expensive also. So suppose which private startup company, they are working working in an application area. So in the beginning itself, they can't buy these highly expensive data sets for any application. So for this, they have to rely on the much more coarser resolution data. So obviously the data accessibility is a issue even for the private sectors also, who are like just in the beginning stage, maybe startup in different application area. So high cost, high resolution data they can't afford sometime, and they have to rely on the open access data sets also. And there is some skill gap also, like now it's gradually reducing, because most of the academics who have masters or PhD qualification also, they are also going into the industry areas. They are also exploring industry experience. So because of that, that skill gap is continuously reducing, but it needs further improvement to develop much more better quality product. And then there is another issue of infrastructure, because to store this much remote sensing based data, or maybe remote sensing data analysis based product, we need a large infrastructure, and for that again it will be computationally expensive. So for a startup, sometimes it's not feasible, but as you grow down the line and business develops, then it's easier to maintain all those things. But yeah, initial stage, the infrastructure cost issues is also there. Now coming to the future trends. So obviously there's still lots of people are using the AI and machine learning different algorithms, but there are some challenges in directly using all the machine learning, specifically I would say the deep learning aspects into the this large scale applications, because as you know, the remote sensing data has itself inbuilt uncertainty into the data. So when we do this large scale application using the remote sensing data and deep learning model, the uncertainty becomes more higher. And for a specific country like India, when there is like in different zones, maybe north part, south part, and maybe eastern part, the climate conditions is different. And because of the climate conditions, whatever the data requirement and the data pattern, like what are the types are grown there, how the crop practices are happening, those are changing location to location. So building a large scale problem is building a large scale model for uniform model is not possible. So we are like, we need for this different practice zone, or maybe for the different climate zone, we need enough ground truth observation, so that we can use those ground truth observation effectively into the remote sensing model so that the model performance gets better. Otherwise, suppose you are using North India's ground truth observation and building a generalized model and then implementing it into South India, that may not work, because it does not get trained with the other climatic zones data. So because of that, this deep learning technique may not work sometimes, but in general people are still trying to model this with more ground truth observation and trying to improve the model. And then there are lots of satellites are getting launched day by day with sensor technology improvement, like high resolution, high spatial resolution, high temporal resolution. So like the pixel, they are planning to like cover daily data. They are planning to give daily data, which will be, I think, great if they can provide that. Because daily hyperspectral data, if you are getting, you can do lots of analysis with the data. Like you can monitor every stages of crop growth. Then this blockchain technology is also getting used nowadays, which ensures basically the data transparency and data security also. And then obviously there should be collaboration between the startups as well as which are like already grown company, between them as well as with the academics also. So that we can build better model, and with better expertise also, better knowledge also, you can improve the model quality for large scale applications. Yeah, so this is the end of my presentation. Thank you, and if you have any questions, you can please ask.
I have a question.
Yeah.
The vegetation index NDVI, in case of very good vegetation time, it gets saturated after a point when there is good vegetation cover. Usually when cropping season is at its bloom.
Yes, so that gets saturated. I mean, maybe somewhere around 0.5 or 0.6 it gets saturated. So that's why, like for crop things, they used leaf area index also sometimes, and there are leaf area index, and there are one more index which generally people, so leaf area index generally does not get saturated like how it gets saturated into the NDVI. So that can be used as an optional parameter to monitor further.
And so soil salinity also creates problem when we are growing crops, like in agriculture. So in India, are there regions having very high salinization due to in the coastal regions, so that problem?
Yeah, I did not explore those, but yeah, there is a possibility in coastal areas. So that's why, like in different regions, they grow different plants or crops. So whichever crop or plants are accustomed to that climatic zone or maybe that soil type, those can be grown there. Otherwise, it's not possible.
That's all. Thank you.
Yes.
Sir, while comparing the paddy transplanting and direct seeded rice, you have mentioned that Sentinel-1 data is using, right?
Yeah.
That's a microwave data.
Yes.
So the atmospheric particles should be there, no? During the cloudy season only you are getting the data. So
No,
That would be a problem.
no. In case the microwave data generally penetrates through the cloud, so that is not an issue in case of.
Because you are monitoring the water content level, no,
Hmm.
in the field. So the atmospheric particles also have the water content. So will that be a problem?
No, as far as I know, that is not an issue. It's generally penetrates through the cloud. But when there is like stagnant, this depth water level is there. That in that cases, the VH polarization band can sensitive to that.
Why don't you use VV polarization?
Which one?
VV polarization. Two kind of bands are there.
Yeah, VV polarization is also there. When we doing this experimentation, we saw like VV polarization may not be, because this advantage with in some cases we can use the VV polarization also if there is any if we can see any changes between the two practices. But mostly it has been seen that the VH polarization, because VH polarization also can monitor the vegetation growth also.
Like classify different crops. Is it possible using microwave?
I have done that once. So there was like I was working with NRSC scientist once, and so I tried to detect the soybean crop classification I wanted to do. So that actually I did with both. I used both VH and VV polarization data, because soybean again happens in the Kharif season in Maharashtra. So during that time period we did not have access to the optical data set. So using the VH and VV polarization data, I did that soybean classification. So I think it's possible.
And sir, is this L-band data?
No. This is C-band, Sentinel-1.
C-band, like mostly it, sends the upper canopy, no?
Yes.
Penetration is not to the depth, no?
Not like L-band, but somewhat depth it can go.
But then I think for this, direct seeded, what's technique you're telling, then L-band will be more.
Yeah, but I think L-band resolution is coarser. So since we are dealing with Indian farms, so Indian farms are like very small size farms. Some guys it is like 1 acre or something. So in those cases, given the small farm size, use of L-band is not feasible because of the coarser resolution.
And so for the crop residue burning, you said that it should be avoided, that parali and all. Then what are the alternatives to,
Yeah, so like government is now promoting in those areas this baling. So in baling what you can do, like you can just pile up this all the residue. So they will collect the residue and then they will sell for some other purpose. And they can, I think, also create from the bales, they can also create the biochars also. That is also feasible. So there are multiple options government is giving. So they are also giving the subsidy for this. So whoever done this baling operation, instead of burning the crops, they provide subsidy in per acreage basis. In North India, I specifically saw these things. In Punjab, Haryana, it happens a lot.
Like rice is sown in India.
Yeah. Yeah. In
How far actually this baling is would be successful? I don't know, because in the large area rice are grown, so the crop residue issue will be there.
No, they are doing this baling, no.
But how far it will be possible? I don't know.
Okay, so this is one solution. There is another thing is like you can also do crop residue incorporation. So if you like using this machinery I mentioned, the super seeder. So what it does, it also whatever the residue is there on the top of the field. Okay, so maybe like 50% of the residue you can do the baling, and whatever is retained you can incorporate into the soil. So through incorporating that into the soil, you are also improving your soil health. So soil organic carbon is getting improved because of that. And when you do this carbon credit calculation, we saw this because of the residue incorporation, we can generate lots of carbon credit out of that. And like the farmer will have like multiple source of income. Government is also subsidizing them because of this, and then they can also earn through the carbon credits also. So they have enough motivation to do this. But yeah, like so large scale who have like large area farms, they are generally following this. But who have the small farms, for them it does not make sense also, because the baling machine itself is like too heavy and they can't go everywhere, and those machines are also not like very limited machines are there. So they have to wait for small farmers, like you have to be in the queue and you have to wait when your number will come. So that's why small farmers still burning, but mostly large farmers, they do follow the baling activity or the residue incorporation activity nowadays.
Sir, you said about tillage and non-tillage, and that you said the cell approximate index.
Yeah.
So can you throw some light on that?
Yeah, so yeah, I just took that from literature, and I did not experimented with it, but it is mostly when this crop residue is mostly like somewhat brown color, and because of that, that cellulose index, if crop residue is there over the field, the cellulose index is sensitive to that, and whether it is a bare soil, nothing is there, and whether this crop residue is there. So between those two conditions, it can be sensitive and it can monitor that change. So using that theory, they are trying to differentiate between these two conditions.
And is it possible to like detect the living plants? Like we are talking about right now about crop residue. So can we use for that living crops or like?
No, living plants you can detect using NDVI only. So if you are like if you are using all these different indices at a time, so it's like this activity will start after harvesting. So using NDVI you can detect when is the harvesting happened, and then after harvesting happened, then only your this cellulose based index or NDTI based index analysis will start. It's not like during the crop growing season you will do that analysis. So living plant is harvested. So suppose paddy is harvested. After that, that analysis will start. So you have to first differentiate between these two. After harvesting only you can do the analysis.
Sir, is there any sources that we can get the historical weather data, like for free?
Weather data?
Yes, sir.
Weather data, you can get it from IMD. I think IMD does not provide it free. Yeah, but this these hydrological models data that NOAA and they provide, right? And even okay, another thing I wanted, I don't know whether someone mentioned or not, the Google Earth engine you can use. So in Google Earth engine, you will get this weather data.
Gridded data, no?
Gridded data.
That is a gridded data that we can get from Geo.
Yes, you will get gridded data only.
I mean the point-wise data, like.
Okay, the station data.
Yes.
Station data is not, as far as I know, station data is not available freely. But in IMD, I think in past years data, maybe last, I mean the traditional, whether old data they can, I think they provide freely, but
Only for rainfall is available.
only for
Rainfall.
okay
Mining.
temperature and all. Yeah, I mean real observation getting freely, I don't know of any source. But for temperature, you can use this satellite-based temperature also, like from LST thermal bands, you can derive the temperature.
Sir, one more question. In the initiation of your talk, you talked about data processing platforms. So, are they available freely or like they are paid ones? Like for processing the data, whatever we are developing, or if private companies they are developing, are they available?
What private companies are doing?
Whatever, sir, basically my interest in is acquiring the data processing platforms. So,
see, so some of the things like whatever I showed that different companies are doing some different platforms they are creating. to some extent to like maybe visualize a specific area, you can visualize that, but I don't think you can freely download those data for maybe further analysis. You can't do that. But so it's not like suppose you want NDVI for a specific location, so that you can maybe like upload your farm boundary or area of interest, and then for that area it will give you a overall thing like maybe average NDVI or maybe like average crop condition or something, or maybe soil moisture. That information they can give, but not like details like suppose there are 50 pixels are there. Now you need information for all these 50 pixels. That you can't get from them freely. So that is the limitation. Like I mean, they are also like business oriented, right? Otherwise, if you want to do on your own, then like you can download the raw data and follow some procedures as per the literature, and you can develop the product for research purpose, I am saying. And recently this Google Earth Engine is getting promoted a lot, and they are like, they have this, and for the research purpose it's open also. So you have this computational ability also, like you can use any type of data for any scale, and you can just, you don't have to download also the data. You can process in their computational power only, and then the final product only you can download, whichever is required for you.
Sir, regarding the SOC modeling you have mentioned now. So have you tracked out the that SOC modeling with respect to the global carbon emission, or have you used for the carbon mitigation strategies or something? Can you link that contribution of that SOC to the global carbon?
Yes, so here what we are trying to do, like so we are trying to see like because of the sustainable practices, whether soil organic carbon content into the soil is improved or not. That we are trying to see. So suppose in the last 5 years, some farmer is following some regenerative practices. Now we want to check the 5 years ago what was the, using the time series satellite data. We'll go back into the time, and 5 years back what was the SOC content into the soil. We try to model that, and then we'll see like what is the SOC content into the soil today. Now that difference, if it is a positive difference, if it is improved, then that will contribute into the carbon credits. That will be like transformed into carbon credits, and then like that carbon credits can be earned or sold. Yeah, just like that.
So I mean to say, you have some kind of model to measure this, how much carbon credits we have, or
yes, we are working on that, and we have some initial models also. We are working on improvement also.
Thank you.
So you said that Pixel has launched that hyperspectral sensor.
Yeah.
And even like they are retrieving different parameters like LAI and chlorophyll and all. So do they give the data? Say I give a ROI or my area. Like, can they provide these parameters directly to us, or they'll just provide the hyperspectral data? And what would be the cost of one single hyperspectral scene?
Cost and all, I don't think, because last week only I think they launched the satellite, so they are still not providing the data, but they have whatever this platform I mentioned, I think Aurora. So they are building this platform where they themselves will utilize the hyperspectral data, and then they will provide you the LAI or chlorophyll content.
Directly for our area we can get the LAI or chlorophyll.
Yeah, so you can just mention an AOI and they can give you this information.
Cost will be very high, no?
Sorry?
Cost will be very high of that particular, like,
Yeah, so if you want to download for a large area, that could be expensive, but I did not explore that yet. I don't know how much cost it will be, but you can obviously explore that. And
for educational institutes, do they give any discount or something like that, like, or the same price for?
So they are collaborating with different academic institutions. So if you collaborate for any project purpose, then you can even get it free also. for research purpose or yeah.
And so they have like in pan India coverage of data, like.
So as I mentioned, there will be a total constellation of 6 satellites. So when all these 6 satellites will get launched, then only it will cover the whole thing. Otherwise, it will be partial coverage. So I think till date only 2 was launched. So down the line, maybe in another 1 or 2 years, it can cover the whole. Any more questions?
Sir, can you give some highlights of the private companies working in the forestry area? Like we have talked about the agriculture. So any
Forestry area. So see, for the land cover classification also, these same companies are providing their product into the forestry area also, whether to monitor the deforestation or maybe the biomass of the forest area. So like Sethshore and this company Cropin, they are also providing in that area. In forestry also they are working. In carbon credits, like Varaha is working the afforestation based carbon credit models also. So the same companies are working in forest also. It's not only limited to agriculture. I mean, whatever I listed here, there could be a subset of the companies. There are lots of other companies who are using the remote sensing data. There are a lot of companies. Listing all those is not possible. But yeah, there are lots of companies who are working. And there are like different application areas also. In insurance, this crop insurance or reinsurance sector, they are also using remote sensing data like Swiss Re, then RNSI. These insurance companies are also using remote sensing data for their application. So there are lots of applications out there.
and can we contact few of them to offer placement?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you can just follow them in LinkedIn, and some companies are also like you can directly email to them, and if they have any like proper opportunities, and in LinkedIn you can like if they have any openings, someone can individually apply, but from an institute side you can contact their HR whether they can go for placement or not.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your expertise on sustainable agriculture and geospatial technology. Now, I'd like to request all of the participants to move forward for a set of photographs.